Okay, we've got a good crowd here, so let's get started, and I'm sure other people will join in, of course. So thanks to everyone for signing in tonight to hear about Beth Shalom's plan for the high holidays. Everyone here should have received an email from the shul last week laying out the procedure that we're going to be using this year, and linking to a document that explains the procedure is a bit more at length. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what our plan is for this year and how we arrived at it. And I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Antin and Rabbi Cooper to talk a bit about what minyan itself is actually going to look like, and some of the halachic reasoning that goes into it. And then I'm going to turn things over to Ben Galper, who's going to talk a bit about some of the health considerations that we have thought about in terms of minyan setup, and in particular in terms of moving indoors, which is something that we have not done yet as a shul. And then we are happy to stick around as long as people have questions, for as many questions as they have. So for starters, our priority this year was, given these uncertain times, trying to accommodate as many people as we possibly could for high holidays, and to do so in as safe a manner as possible. And as a result, as you know, hopefully you saw from email, we have a bit of a complicated setup, but you know, we're really determined to do anything that we can do to make sure that we can accommodate as many people for minyan, and accommodate people for shofar blowing who don't want to or can't come to minyan. That's really our priority, and doing it in a safe and responsible manner as possible means that we are going to have some logistical complications this year. But that was our priority. Before I talk about what exactly high holidays are going to look like, I just want to say a word about the importance of high holidays to the health of our shul. So first of all, this is going to be for many people the first time that they are back at shul since COVID-19 started. You know, we thankfully we have a minyan every day in the parking lot, and we've had good numbers at minyan. We've had even better numbers on Shabbat morning. I think I was away the two previous Shabbatot before this one, but I think that this Shabbat might have been the largest crowd we've had on Shabbat morning, and it's great to see those numbers growing. But you know, I'm not sure we've had more than 60 people at minyan at any one time. So this is going to be the first time that many people are back at shul since this started, and it's critically important that as a matter of engagement. You know, we are a shul, and obviously that usually means people coming together in one place. And so we really want to get this right, so that we can make sure that shul members who haven't been to shul so far feel connected to the shul, feel connected to community, and really understand that the shul is here for our membership. Second, high holidays are always important to Beth Shalom from a budgetary standpoint. That has not changed this year. To give people a sense of how important they are, when COVID-19 started, way back in March, the shul board and the shul budget committee started meeting on a regular basis to figure out how we could craft a budget that was going to get us through the year. And we cut everything that could possibly be cut. Anything that was extra, we cut. Unfortunately, we had to let some staff go. We had to reduce staff hours. We did everything we could to make sure that the shul would still be run in a responsible way, and frankly, still be here when this is over. And so while high holidays are always important to the fiscal health of the shul, even with this pared down budget, and even assuming a huge drop off in revenue from high holidays, and to give, you know, for the sake of transparency, when we created the budget, we assumed that the revenue from high holidays this year would be 50% of what it was from last year, because, you know, as I said, we are living in uncertain times. Even with that 50% assumption, we are still relying on high holiday tickets this year for 19%, just under 19%. It's actually 18.8% of the revenues in the shul budget. So, you know, we want to accommodate as many people as possible because it's important to serve our members, and we want to accommodate as many people as possible because it's really critical for Beth Shalom that this work and that people buy tickets and that people feel comfortable. So with all that said, this is what we are planning. We are going to be having minyan both indoors and outdoors. In order to accommodate as many people as possible, we are going to have, we don't know the exact numbers yet because it's going to be based on tickets and how many tickets are sold, but we are planning on having as many as 3 minyanim indoors at the same time and 3 minyanim outdoors at the same time. The reason that we have to have so many is because we are limited by the Montgomery County and Maryland state guidelines to having one family unit for every 200 square feet. Just to give people a sense of what that means, it means that in Epstein, which is an enormous room, I think the maximum number is 59 people. In Abramson, which is also a sizable room, the maximum number is 48 people. So we are dealing with serious space constraints. Outside as well, while we could theoretically have one or maybe two enormous minyanim in the parking lot, that is going to be very difficult because people will not be able to hear the Shliach Tzibor or the Baal Koreh. In addition, we are working to put up tents in the parking lot to guard against rain, excessive sun, and that too, getting a tent that will fit the entire parking lot is also a difficult endeavor. It means we have to get smaller tents. So we are looking at 3 inside and 3 outside at the same time. And as a result of the fact that we have to have so many minyanim, and that even with so many, there's only so many we can accommodate each time, we're going to have 2 shifts, an early shift and a later shift. And so that means up to 6 minyanim in an earlier shift, up to 6 minyanim in a later shift. As you'll see from the form that the office sent out, people can request indoors or outdoors and can also indicate whether they are willing to be flexible. We are not going to seat anybody indoors who does not want to be indoors, and we are not going to seat anybody outdoors who does not want to be outdoors. So as you can imagine, this is, as I said before, pretty logistically complicated, but we are doing our best. We're doing our best to make sure that we can pull all of this off. In addition, for those people who are still not comfortable or unable to attend Minyan, we are going to be organizing separate shofar blowing around the neighborhood so that people will be able to hear shofar, which is the only rabbis can talk to this, but I'm pretty sure the only actual halachic requirement for Rosh Hashanah. So we're going to be setting that up as well. Children are able to attend. People can buy tickets for children, and we are going to be maintaining all of the social distancing rules that we've been maintaining this entire time. So that means social distancing. It means people will have to wear masks the entire time, and we are also going to make sure that people do not have to share machzorim. So we're trying to figure out now exactly how many machzorim we have. Depending on how many we have, we will either be able to put out half of them on the first day of Rosh Hashanah and then put out the other half on the second day so that nobody is using a machzor that somebody else used. And if we don't have enough to do that, then we are going to be handing out machzorim to people, and we'll set up times for people to come to the shul to pick them up before the Chag. And so you'll take a machzor and you will keep it with you. You'll keep it with you throughout Rosh Hashanah. Thankfully, Yom Kippur, that should not be a problem because it's only one day. So people can take a machzor at Kol Nidre and bring it back the next day. Or if people are not at Kol Nidre, they can take a machzor when they get there on Yom Kippur morning and keep it with them that day. But we are doing everything we can to make sure that everything is safe and that we are in compliance with county guidelines, and that we can have what will be a very unusual high holidays, but one that will serve our members for really everything they may need. So I don't think I've left anything out. If I have, I'm sure we'll get to that in questions, but I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Antin to talk about the various halachic implications of what we'll be doing this year.
Hey, thank you, Michael. And thank you everyone for joining. It's so wonderful to see so many people here. I think this is one of our largest Zoom gatherings, but it really shows how much people care about davening and care about the shul and want to make sure that Yomim Noraim, the high holidays this year, is as meaningful as possible. I read, I think even it said in some of our literature that, we're asking for flexibility. Things won't be perfect this year. But then upon reflection, I was thinking about that word perfect. And actually, I do think that this year is going to be perfect. It's going to be perfect for this year, the exact way that it should be for this year. What we need this year, we're going to be able to provide. It's going to be different, that's for sure, but it will be perfectly different or differently perfect. I don't know. Someone will explain to me afterwards. But the bottom line is, it'll be special. I'm telling you, we've had experiences in our parking lot over the last few months, beautiful sunsets, amazing davenings. Sometimes it was very hot in rain, but I guarantee you anyone who's been to the outside minyan will say that they've had some of the most memorable and important davening. And I hope that people have that, whether we're inside or outside, it doesn't matter. I hope it will be special and important in whatever way it is. Okay, I first want to lay out two spiritual principles for this year. One is this idea that it's going to be perfect for what we need. The second one is that we are committed to provide high holidays for everyone in the shul. I know some of you will be inside, some of you outside, some of you will be at home. And if you're home, we're also committed. As Michael said, we're going to be providing shofar blowings around the community to the extent that we can. But also before that, there are going to be Zoom services on Erev Rosh Hashanah. Again, it's not Yontif itself, so it'll be modified, what we can do. We're going to have a Yizkor service. Our Yizkor service, Pesach and Shavuos, were very, very, a lot of people showed up to them and people found them meaningful. We're going to be providing machzorim for people, even if you're not coming to shul. We're going to be providing supplements for your machzor, tefillah guides, and of course, we're here to answer questions. We're going to be providing learning leading up to the high holidays. So our goal, I hope that people don't feel like, oh, I'm not able to show up in person, therefore I'm not part of this year's high holidays. The idea, the goal is that we are going to try our best, the clergy, Beth Shalom, to meet your spiritual needs as best as possible given this year, whether you come or whether you don't, to try to help you out in any of those ways. And we're very open to more ideas. If people have ideas on how we can do that, how to think creatively, this is new for all of us. We definitely want to hear and learn about it. Okay, Michael mentioned that we're going to have multiple minyanim with multiple shifts. Okay, so this obviously will require an abbreviated davening. Typically on Rosh Hashanah, for let's say in the morning, davening starts at 8 o'clock and it's over about 12:30. In order to do this, in order to have, let's say, multiple shifts at shul, we would have to pare the davening down to about 2 hours, to 2 hours and 10 minutes to be able to have 2 shifts of davening and then also a cleaning in between. So in addition, by the way, to trying to get multiple minyanim, we are going to be davening in masks. It's not so comfortable. It's hard to be there for a long time. We don't know what the weather will be like. It's particularly hard for the chazan and for the Baal Koreh, the person who's reading the Torah. So therefore, we feel that there's an imperative to try to make the davening shorter. Every shul is working on this. So I just want to lay out some of the halachic principles and how we can turn what's normally a 4.5-hour service into 2 hours. And hopefully at the end of this night, you won't say, well, Rabbi, why can't it be like that every year? Because this year, obviously, is special. So some of the halachic principles that we're operating with is we are not cutting out Psukei Zimra, the first section of the davening up until Nishmas. We are asking people to daven that at home. And there is much halachic precedence for that. In the times of the Talmud, it was clear people would do their morning blessings and large parts of davening at home. In many yeshivot, they daven this by themselves. So you don't actually have to daven that with a minyan. You don't really start with a minyan until Nishmas, the section right before Baruch Hu. And that's what we've been doing in Shul right now in the parking lot. So that's what we're going to continue doing. That's going to cut off a nice chunk of the davening, maybe about a half an hour or so. Another halachic principle is called Heichi Kedusha, which means we are used to davening the silent Amidah and then also having the repetition. Definitely when it comes to Shacharis, and to Mincha of Rosh Hashanah, of Yom Kippur, we are going to be able to do a Heichi Kedusha. There will not be a repetition. This is perfectly halachically okay. Again, it's done in many situations, even during the year. Obviously, it's not typically done on the high holidays, but it can be done. We would end up having to miss a lot of the piyutim, the poems that were composed in the medieval ages, but they are not an essential halachic requirement. But we're going to do it in a way where we're not going to be cutting out everything. There are obviously some highlights. So, like for instance, for Musaf, we are probably not going to do a Heichi Kedusha for Musaf. However, we are going to skip out a lot of what's called these piyutim, these extra poems. Some of these have deep meaning to people, like Unisana Tokef. Obviously, halachically, it could be cut, but we're not going to cut that, right? We're going to try to strike a balance between having a spiritually meaningful experience, but also being able to accommodate as many shifts as possible. When it comes to shofar blowing, even though our custom is to do 100 blasts, but really as a minimum requirement, you only need 30, and a second tier fulfillment of the requirement would be to have 60, 30 before Musaf and 30 during Musaf. We're going to aim to at least try to have 60. If we could work out, again, it will depend on time. It's going to depend on signups, how many shifts we have to have. We might end up having 100, but we have halachic room there as well. So these are some of the halachic principles that we're going to have. Even when it comes to Kol Nidre, this might feel a little bit strange to you guys, and it would to me, and no one has done this before, probably, but there's going to have to be an early shift and a late shift. The early shift will start a few minutes before sunset, which this year is at 6:38, so it'll be about 6:35, the first shift. And I'm sorry, candle lighting is at 6:38. So mincha of the first shift will probably start at about 6:35 or 6:40, and the first kol nidre will probably be at about 6:50. And then we're going to have a second shift at 8 o'clock. So people who are doing that, if they want to daven mincha, that second shift will have to come earlier in the afternoon. We always have a mincha on Yom Kippur afternoon at 3:30, and you are allowed to do a kol nidre as a later shift, maybe at 8:30. We might have to have a later shift just to be able to accommodate everyone. I want to point out one more thing. It's not halachic, but I think it's very related to our spiritual connection, our family connection. A big issue for the high holidays is for shuls to be able to have children's programs and babysitting. And we did a survey, and also just based on logistics, that's just going to be way too complicated. Children who are able to daven with their parents are, of course, allowed to come, but if children are not able to sit with their parents, they won't be able to come. But actually, even though we cannot provide actual childcare this year, there's actually one advantage. This is another advantage about having shifts, and I hope that families with young kids take advantage of this. If you have two shifts, one spouse, one parent can come to the early shift, and the other one take care of the kids, and then the second one can come to the second shift. That is something that is not possible on a regular year, and parents have to make decisions of who's going to miss more of davening and which section of davening. Here's actually one of the silver linings, if you will, of having multiple shifts, that more people can come. So again, I just want to reiterate the 2 points. Davening won't be the same, but it will be perfect for this year the way it needs to be. We have it in ourselves to find the spiritual meaning and the flexibility to make davening work. And second principle is we want to make sure that as many people can daven as possible, and we want to connect to everyone, whether you're coming or whether you're home. And we have a lot of ideas on how to connect to people who will not actually be in our space. But if you have more ideas, please let us know. We really want to do our best to connect to everyone in our shul over this Yom Noraim. So if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer during the Q&A session part.
Thank you, Rabbi. Turn it to Ben Galper, who will talk a bit about some of the health issues and particularly some of the things we're doing about going back indoors.
Thanks, Michael. For those that don't know me, I'm Ben Galper. I'm the chair of the reopening committee for Beth Shalom, and on the side, I'm also a cardiologist. So first, I wanted to thank the committee. We have a very big committee that's been really working for months now. The committee consists of both Michael Koplow and Arnie Hiller, our current and immediate past presidents, both Rabbi Zantine and Rabbi Cooper, Rachel Zushi, our executive director, Sam Charnoff, and our vice presidents, Michelle Singer, who kind of represents what's going on from the ECC, Rachel Wilkinson Rubenstein, who really has been our legal authority, our legal go-to on legal questions and concerns, Orly Panich, who also is a doctor, an ER doctor, and Talia Baumgarten. So it's been a diverse group with different backgrounds. And we also have a very busy health subcommittee that's been really hard at work trying to make sure whatever we do in terms of reopening is as health conscious and as safe as possible. Ellen Werner has been leading that, doing a really amazing job. She's a public health expert, but really has been working, seems like 40 hours a week on this. Also on the committee are myself, Sarah Glassoff, who also has a public health background, a number of other physicians, including Orly, Bob Kreitman, Rob Kalansik, and Giorgio Culp, has really been very important and very helpful when it comes to issues related to children's programming, ECC. So I just want to give a little bit of a background as to how we came up with what seems like this crazy plan, and what the reasoning is behind it. In the very beginning, the first few months of this pandemic, our goal was just to get some sort of dominating and whatever normalcy we could within the current pandemic. So we started obviously with outdoor minyanim. As Michael mentioned, we won't go into. I've done very well. I mean, well attended. As Montgomery County moved into phase 2, we started thinking about our phase 2, which is going inside the building, with a focus really on Rosh Hashanah and the high holidays as our goal for it being inside. I think that's obviously going to be important for us. There's no question it's inherently higher risk to be inside versus outside with COVID-19. The risk of transmission inside is much higher than outside. But kind of the same principles go into play when we go inside, and there are things we were doing to make it as safe as possible. As already mentioned, everyone will be wearing masks at all times, unless you're a child under 2 years old, but all children over 2 will be required to wear masks at all times. Social distancing will be important. Montgomery County rule is not one person, but actually one family unit per 200 square feet. So every 200 square feet inside the shul will basically can be, or inside a room in the shul, a spot for a family. And we're going to do our best to actually put families on either side of the mechitza so the men and women in that family can each take up the 200 square foot spot with the mechitza in the middle. The two most important things are really mask and social distancing. The one thing that then we have to go into play when we go inside is the HVAC system and ventilation. We really spent a lot of time talking to a number of experts to how to make our shul as safe as possible. People go indoors. We relied on interactions with some of our own members, Lester Severe, who knows our building inside and out, Maurice Beit-Haron, and then as well as some outside experts, industrial hygienist named Nelson Barnes, and a mechanical engineer who really focuses on HVAC systems in large buildings like ours, named Todd Freeman. You may know him. He lives in Kent Mill. So they gave us a lot of input. And there's 3 things that you will look into, you're worried about, you're looking at when you're talking about HVAC and the spread of virus like COVID. One is increasing the amount of air that's recirculated every time the air conditioning turns on. So actually increasing the amount of air that's coming in from the outside. So you're getting rid of indoor air, bringing in outside air. The other is how well you filter the air that's coming in. If you're filtering it to a point that will filter out aerosolized viral particles. And the third is isolating or destroying a virus, active destruction of the virus. Some of these, I'm sure you've seen these UV or ionizing systems, which actually can zap the virus. Now, it's important to put this in context that we have, I'll be honest, a relatively older HVAC system, which is already kind of under stress. So they have to take that into account. We're working to maximize the outdoor air circulation. In fact, that's happening as we speak. We have our contractors are working on maximizing how much outdoor air we can take in. We are currently kind of at the max in terms of the level of the filtration we have in terms of the MERV system. MERV 8 is what we currently have. MERV 13, it just how aggressively you're filtering the air. We actually really can't stress our system more than we're at, otherwise it would possibly break or would filter out particles less. But for high contact areas we're concerned about, particularly the bathrooms, we are investing in HEPA filter systems to really improve the filtration in the rooms there. And everyone we talked to unanimously said that we did not need to go the route of installing very expensive UV filters that actually destroy the virus to save. That's really unnecessary for hospitals. And honestly, every single person we talked to, including our unaffiliated experts, thought that if we increase outdoor air circulation and improve circulation in the bathroom, that our building is safe for indoor use during COVID-19. Obviously, assuming everyone does social distancing and wears masks, they felt comfortable that there shouldn't be an issue. Obviously, we're having indoor and outdoor services for those who are concerned or at a higher risk population, perhaps. Maybe outdoor is better because it's a little safer, just because it's outdoor. But we do feel that no matter where you're davening, we'll be safe for you. A few other quick notes. Someone asked a question about shofar. Maybe Rabbi Antin will talk about this, but we talked a lot about shofar blowing, obviously, because that seems like a high risk action. Aerosolization is definitely happening. So there's a couple things we're doing, which maybe Rabbi Antin can jump in, but covering the shofar with a cloth, which is apparently luckily permissible to decrease the amount of aerosolization. For when we're indoors, for rooms that have an emergency exit, the shofar, the Baltic will actually standing outside when blowing, not inside. The shofar blowing standard, away from everyone as well when they're blowing shofar when they're inside. So I think we're taking measures to make that safe. I think that's kind of just the basic background. Where everything we're doing is in the mind to being able to have davening and make Rosh Hashanah and Kippur as normal as possible, but also making sure it's as safe as possible. And I think if we're, as a community, we do this together, we're all invested in wearing masks and social distancing and really showing up for davening and then leaving and not hanging around and talking. If we're all on the same page, we'll get through this and we'll go very well. And Rabbi Antin will hopefully be as perfect as possible. I'm happy to take questions afterwards. People have it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ben. Before we get to questions, just one thing, since I have a large captive audience, I want to remind everybody that what used to be Guys Night Out is now going to be Family Night In. It's going to be on August 30th. If you have not signed up yet, you are still able to do that. If you want to increase the number of meals you've ordered, you're still able to do that. And we are also looking for volunteers. So for any of those things, to sign up, to order additional meals, to volunteer to help out, please be in touch with the office. Okay, so we have a bunch of questions here over chat. So first, at each minyan, will specific seats be assigned or first come, first choice? So the office is still figuring out how to handle seats. It's partially going to depend on how many ticket requests we get, and once we know the number of tickets and more critically, the number of people who want to be inside versus being outside, then we'll have a better handle. In preliminary discussions, I think it's almost certain that we will be assigning seats inside, because that is where things get a bit more logistically complicated given the size of rooms. We haven't determined yet whether we're going to be assigning specific seats outside or whether it will be first come, first serve. But as I said before, we are working on tenting the minyanim outside. So if we end up not assigning specific seats outside, it hopefully will not impact people in terms of whether they are under a tent or not. We are doing everything we can to make sure that every seat outside will be tented, making sure that we also keep a fire lane open and that we're keeping the safety codes. There's a question about additional security for outdoor services. Yes, there will be additional security. As I mentioned before, high holidays is important to the shul in terms of revenue, but we are also spending more this year on high holidays than we have in other years, due to a combination of the tents, the additional security that we anticipate needing so that we can secure the entrance that comes in through the St. James parking lot. As Ben mentioned, we're doing things to the HVAC system, including HEPA filters. So high holidays are probably going to cost us $15,000 to $20,000 more this year than in a normal year. And part of that is that we are going to be having additional security. There's a question about if you are able to register for later Rosh Hashanah service and then earlier Kol Nidre service. That is a good question. Rabbi Antin, do you know the
I
answer?
mean, I think that the standard default is that if you sign up for early Rosh Hashanah service, then you're going to get the early Kol Nidre. But obviously, if you have specific reasons why, depending on our sign up and room availability, we certainly will want to accommodate you. So just let us know. In terms of the schedule for Yom Kippur, the morning is going to be very similar to Rosh Hashanah in the sense that we'll have two shifts. One at approximately 7:45, the second one at approximately starting at 10:30. The afternoon is the confusing one, and that's going to depend on response. And that's why it's very important when you fill out your form to not only fill out your form, but really to the best of your ability. I know it's far away. Let us know which minyanim, which tefillot you're planning on coming to, because it's possible that we'll need multiple shifts in the morning, but we won't necessarily need it. Like Mincha on Yom Kippur, surprise, surprise, doesn't get as many people as Kol Nidre, right? So we definitely don't need to have multiple shifts for Mincha, but we have to figure out, for instance, if we need multiple shifts for Ne'ilah. So it's very, very important for you to fill it out. But because of that, we still don't know what exactly the schedule is for Yom Kippur afternoon for Mincha and Ne'ilah, because it's going to depend on whether or not we need to get in 2 shifts or not. And 2 shifts is obviously very complicated when it comes to Ne'ilah. It's probably the most complicated one, but we're working on that.
And just to add, in terms of on the form, it being really important for you to indicate which minyanim you're going to attend. In Herschel Hall, for example, the limit that we can have there is 26. So if there are a number of if there are people who are registered for Herschel Hall who then don't come to a specific service, we may not actually get a minyan there, and then we have to scramble literally that morning to reassign those people somewhere else and figure out where we can accommodate people. So I know it's not easy sitting here now on August 9th to predict where you're going to be on September 19th and September 20th, and specifically which minyan you're going to attend. But if people can do it to the best of their ability, it'll really help us pull this off in as smooth a manner as possible. The question about consideration given to the risks of blowing shofar indoors, Ben addressed that. A question about if someone who attends Rosh Hashanah is later deemed to have COVID, will the shul be forthcoming in letting those who attended know? Absolutely. Of course, that will require anybody who attends shul to let the shul know if they are diagnosed with COVID. That is something that thankfully we have not dealt with yet. Nobody who has attended minyan at shul yet has, as far as I know, been diagnosed with COVID. Nobody has informed the shul that they have, but yes, we absolutely want shul members to let us know. If you have attended shul at any point and you are diagnosed with COVID-19, it's really critical to let the shul know, A, so that we can make sure that you're doing okay, but B, so that we can figure out exactly who else was there and notify everybody. We are absolutely always, but especially now, in the business of being as open and transparent as possible with shul members about everything, about the challenges the shul is facing, about our needs, and certainly about any health risks that there are. It's why it's why I'm so glad to see so many people at this town hall, so that people can hear for themselves what we're doing and ask any questions you have. So yes, if somebody's diagnosed with COVID-19 and informs the shul will absolutely be informing members about the situation.
Michael, can I jump in, Michael? Maybe I should have said earlier, but anyone who's signing up for davening is, one, signing a waiver, saying they understand the risks of attending any community gathering with COVID, and 2, there's a symptom checker which goes through about 10 different symptoms, including fever and others. And if you have any of those, you really obviously cannot come to shul and should not come to shul because you could infect others. And there'll be signs posted when you walk in. If you have any of these symptoms, do not come in. The entire process I just laid out is set up so that if there is someone with asymptomatic COVID in the same room as you, even 200 square feet away from you, you in theory should be okay. If you're wearing masks, you're social distancing, someone with asymptomatic, even if you're sitting in the same minyan as you, your risk of getting COVID is very, very low. That's the whole reason we have all these policies. That being said, of course, we'll do contact tracing, and we'll let everyone know if someone's in the same minyan as you and had it, we'll let you know. But rest assured, the reason we're doing this is that someone asymptomatic shows up with COVID, that you should likely not get infected from them.
And I also want to stress that we are going to keep up with whatever standards there are and remain flexible. And so, for those of you looking at the chat, Ellen, our health subcommittee chair, has pointed out that if somebody was diagnosed with COVID-19 and was at Shul, then we need different types of disinfection protocols, which we will follow. But also, if Montgomery County guidelines shift, we are going to keep up with standards and remain flexible. One of the many difficult things about this year, but one of the more difficult things, as anyone like me who has kids in local day schools knows, the standards change frequently and without warning, and it's very possible that this plan, which has been formulated based on the current Montgomery County guidelines, will have to change between now and Rosh Hashanah if those guidelines change. So we will be flexible and in compliance with whatever the guidelines are, both county guidelines and both whatever guidelines we need to be on top of if, God forbid, somebody does get diagnosed with COVID-19 and attends Shul. There's a question about plans for tents in the parking lot. Will there be 3 separate tents? It's basically going to depend on a combination of tent size and how much they cost. But as I said, we are planning on tenting all of the minyanim outside. To be honest, I'm not sure yet if we know the specifics about whether it's going to be 3 separate tents or more than that. But everything will be tented. There's a question about, will it be fans for outside minyanim? I don't think that we have contemplated fans for outside minyanim.
We have, no, sorry, we have, and actually that increases the risk of spreading COVID. So if someone were to sneeze near a fan and have it, you can imagine what could happen. So it's maybe unpleasant. It's more unpleasant in July than September, but fans we will not be able to do.
Also, I think September 19th in the morning, some people are going to be looking for heaters more than fans. It's 60 degrees, sometimes in the 50s in the early morning on at that time of the year.
The next question, Rabbi, I think this is for you. Can you start Kol Nidre before candle lighting so we can have Zoom already on and hear it?
Okay, yeah.
And the Ela at home.
Right. So what we're going to do is, it will be before, but we're going to have on Erev Rosh Hashanah, we're going to have a Zoom service. This is part of our outreach to people who are not going to be able to come physically at Shul. So we're going to be having a service where we will have Kol Nidre. We will be singing many of the important tefillot of Yom Kippur. Again, it's not halachic Yom Kippur yet, but we will be doing all of those things. And of course, we'll also be doing Yizkor during that service. So we will have a service where people can have an experience before Yom Kippur of Yom Kippur if they're going to be home. In fact, that might be the only Kol Nidre sung with the way that you're used to hearing Kol Nidre sung, that one on Zoom, because in the parking lot it probably won't feel like that, or even inside with masks. So we're definitely going to do that. I think the next question might also be, for me, there's a question about duchening. Yes, we are able to have duchening. We probably will not be able to wash our hands, but the halacha is that for duchening, if for whatever reason you cannot wash your hands, you can wash your hands before you come. That's one option. And pending approval by the health committee, although I can't think of the issue, if you bring your own bottle of water, if you bring your own water bottle, you can wash your own hands. Don't have anybody else wash your hands. The whole idea of having a Levi wash your hands for you is not required. You can take your own water bottle and wash your hands. I guess I haven't asked the health committee about that, but if they're okay with that, we'll send out guidelines for sure. But you can either do it at home, and that's for sure halachically okay, or in Shul, and you'll do it. Obviously, the Kohanim will have to spread out, social distancing, but we will be able to do duchening.
Great. There's a question, is there any use for the people who have tested positive for antibodies? Matthias, I'm not sure what you mean by the question. If you want to unmute yourself and elaborate.
I will unmute him 1 second. Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi. So, I mean, simply, is there an advantage for people who have tested for antibodies? You know, the doctors generally say that because we know so little about the virus, it's hard to tell. I'm not sure if that's just basically a standard answer that's given because of legal reasons, or if it's, you know, if there is actually some advantage. And if there is, you know, knowing really that much more might put some people at a you know, position in which they might be able to do more.
I don't know if Ellen wants to, it's a good question. I think the general answer is we don't, like you said, really don't know what positive antibody means, if it actually confers immunity to the virus or not, how long it lasts. So the answer is I wouldn't put any stock in whether you have a positive antibody or not. I don't know if Ellen, you want to jump in or not, but that's kind of my thought on it.
Yeah, hi. So thank you for that question. You're talking about a phenomenon that would be herd immunity. That is, enough people have been infected and the antibodies that they have protect them. We don't know yet. And the evidence seems to change weekly about the lasting effect of antibodies and the protection from reinfection. But we do expect, and it might just be by the time of Rosh Hashanah, we'll have more information about it. But at this point, we don't know enough to say. But it's something the health committee can take up at its next meeting within the next week or so.
Great, thank you, Ellen. Next question: will there be a Sephardic minyan? Yes, we are in touch with the Sephardic minyan about that. There will be a Sephardic minyan. We are trying to plan for there to be a Sephardic minyan both inside and outside if there is demand for both of those. If there isn't enough demand to sustain both, then you know, we will work with the Sephardic minyan to see which one makes the most sense for its members. But yes, there will be a Sephardic minyan. And on the sign-up form, one of the questions is whether you are signing up for Ashkenazi minyan or Sephardi minyan, and obviously that will, you know, once we have all those responses, it will of course help us figure out how many and whether indoors or outdoors. The next question: any decisions yet about who will lead the various services? Yes, we've been working on that for a while. Obviously, with so many minyanim, it becomes more complicated this year. But we have been in touch with a long list of people who have served as chazanim on the high holidays in the past, and people who may be willing to serve as a chazan this year. I've also been in touch with potential Balei Kriya for laning for all the minyanim. I anticipate that many of the people who volunteer and step up to do this for the shul will end up having to do it at multiple minyanim across each day of Yantif. So if there's anybody here, and specifically for Balei Kriya, since it's still somehow my job to organize laning for the shul, I've got to give it up. But if anybody here knows how to lane Torah for high holiday Nusach, please be in touch with me, because that's going to be difficult. And for those of you who are going to have to watch me run around the parking lot to different minyanim, you'll get a laugh.
I can just add to what Michael just said. When we say that we've been looking, in addition, of course, to the rabbis, I really want to take this moment to thank Zahava Horowitz and Brian Funt, the co-chairs of the religious committee, have really done an outstanding job spending so many hours working on this, making sure that we can have Baalei Tefillah. Jesse Mendelson has also been very, very instrumental in terms of finding Baalei Tefillah, as Michael has been finding the Baalei Kriya. So there's really a huge group of people, and really the whole religious committee has been working on this and continues to work on this. So I really want to thank them for all the work. But also along these lines, when we talked about this being perfect for this year, We have to remember that a lot of the people who are going to be, or some of the people who are going to be leading davening this year will be doing it for the first time, and they're going to be doing it in order to help us have a service. Also with laners, I'm sure they've laned before, but maybe didn't necessarily lane before on the high holidays. So it's going to take a lot of flexibility and openness on our part, an open heart, open mind as we go into the high holidays.
Yeah, and I'd also want to add my thank you to Zahav and Brian, who've been invaluable, both in terms of coming up with this plan for high holidays and for organizing helping to organize all of the logistics around it. Next question, will we be able to park on the church lots on Erev Yom Kippur? That's a great question. I don't think we've looked into that yet, but I will make sure yes, we'll look into it and we'll make sure to inform the community. Irrespective of what the answer is. Is it permissible to organize a minyan in your court or block? So from the Shul standpoint, anybody who wants to organize a minyan, you're welcome to do so. We did consider on the reopening committee whether we were going to have official Beth Shalom backyard minyanim for high holidays. It's something that we really would have liked to try to accommodate, because we understand there are people who either they're not comfortable coming to Shul, they're not comfortable with such large numbers, they may just feel more comfortable in their backyard. Ultimately, we deemed it as a committee too difficult to pull off, and we did have a lengthy discussion about it. It involves so many moving parts, from having a Shul organize even more minyanim aside from the ones that we already are doing on the Shul property, to figuring out logistics in terms of more chazanim and if we can lend Torahs. There was a question about how we manage that in terms of selling tickets, whether we can sell tickets to a backyard minyan. So ultimately, we weren't able to figure out a way to have an official Beth Shalom minyan for high holidays. If people want to organize a minyan for themselves in their backyard, the shul does not control every aspect of your life, of course, and anybody who wants to do so, is free to do it. And anybody who wants to do it should feel free to reach out to the rabbis for halachic guidance about for help in doing it. But the shul itself is not organizing backyard minyanim. So if you do it, as I said, feel free to reach out to the rabbis for advice. But unfortunately, the shul isn't able to organize them or officially sanction them. But I do want to be clear that from the shul's perspective, if you want to do it, you are free to do it. Next question: will davening be at the same pace as in the past, or speed it up to finish within time limit? So, as Rabbi Antin can I guess can answer this one. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Yeah, the pace of the davening itself will be the same. We're not planning on rushing through the davening. It's just that there are many parts of the davening that are not halachically required to be said. So on a normal year, we do these additions, these piyutim, and other parts of the davening. This year, we in order to accommodate the most amount of people, everyone should be able to have a yontif experience who wants to have it. We are going to be cutting out parts of the davening that are not halachically required, but we will not be, like, for instance, saying the Shema at a quicker pace. The davening will be at the right pace. It's just that, we won't be having the kind of chazanis that you might normally see. For instance, in the Epstein, you won't have some of the slow, but the actual pace of your davening should be the same.
Great. By the way, just our excellent events and logistics coordinator, Stevie Friedman, tells me that we are going to have 3 tents, no fans, but there will be lights, and also that the seating outdoors will not be assigned. Okay, next, are there going to be temperature checks upon entry? There will not, as far as I know. Ben, do you want to talk about that?
No, there will not be temperature checks. There's really no evidence that they really achieve anything. If you have a fever, we just ask you not to come to shul. It's really that simple. I go to the hospital every day. I get my temperature checked every time I walk out. I've been 97.7 some every single time, and I don't think we've had one person with a fever that's walked in. So I don't think it's not really beneficial. But just if you're sick, just don't come to Shoal. That's what we ask.
Next question: how far apart will the outdoor seating be? So that is still subject to the one family per 200 square feet. And the way we've set up the Shoal parking lot at the moment, regularly during the week has been to space things out. I think it's 10 chairs are 10 feet. 10 feet.
It's about 7 or 8 feet.
Okay. So if you've been to Shoal, you've checked it out on Zoom. Since we've been in the parking lot, it'll be a similar setup. But people will be able to cluster chairs together within 200 feet spaces if you are not by yourself and you have family members with you. But to reiterate, all of the county guidelines are going to be observed to the letter without exception. Next question: if you don't plan to come to Shoal, will there be a list of essential tefillot for davening? Rabbi, you want to take that one?
Yes, we're going to put together a tefillah guide, and that will be part of some sort of a tefillah packet that we're going to send to everyone, whoever wants to receive a tefillah packet. It'll also be online, but we're actually going to be trying to putting together packets that will include tefillah guide, exactly what you should daven when you're home.
Great. Next question: who will be the rabbis for the various services? I think you're looking at them.
There won't be. We will not physically be at every service. We of course will try to make our rounds or go around. But we actually, depending on how many services we have, we might actually have to lead some of the davening too. And so yes, we won't necessarily have a rabbi standing at every service, but we'll definitely try to get around to see everybody.
Next question: will people davening outside be able to use the restrooms inside? The answer to that question is yes. We looked into getting porta potties for outside minyanim, but determined that in terms of ventilation, porta potties don't seem to be a particularly safe option. It probably, in the reopening committee's opinion, it is safer for people to go inside and use the bathrooms. We have procedures, as I think we mentioned earlier, for cleaning the bathrooms throughout the day. There are also going to be procedures in terms of clear signage about how many people can be in the bathroom at any one time. Yes, if people are outside, they will be able to use the restrooms inside. And hopefully, because this will be a shortened two-hour service, hopefully, people will be able to, as best as possible, not have to use the bathroom while they're on Shoal property. But yes, the inside bathrooms will be available for people who are davening outside. Next question: are the tents open without walls, or will there be walls with door openings? The tents are going to be open. Again, that's for purposes of airflow and the health subcommittee's recommendations. If somebody wants to be outside, can they bring their own chair? I don't see why not. The Shoal will be providing chairs, as we have been now for a few weeks. Although I noticed this past week on Shabbat that there were people who still brought their own chairs. Sure, if you want to bring your own chair because it's more comfortable, go ahead. It will just have to be placed in a spot that stays with in compliance with the spacing guidelines. For non-B'nai Mitzvah age children, can they go between parents during the service? I think that should be okay, but I want to reiterate, and I say this as somebody who has 3 small kids, and at least one of whom will not sit still under almost any circumstance. If you bring your kids to Shoal, that's great. They are welcome. I'll tell you now, I will be buying tickets for all 3 of my children, whether they get used or not. But if you are going to bring children, they have to be sitting next to a parent the whole time. If a child goes back and forth between the 2 parents, I think that's okay. But we really can't have a situation where kids are running around either inside or outside. For general safety reasons, for COVID-19 reasons, for all sorts of reasons. So, please, if your kids are able to sit next to you during shul, and remember, it'll be a shorter shul than usual for Rosh Hashanah and for Yom Kippur, please bring them. It's great to have kids there, but they really do have to be sitting with their parents at all times and not running around and not congregating with their friends. Next question: how will you ensure that only Beth Shalom members who signed up will be admitted even to outside davening? So it's going to be the same system that we have every year, where you have to bring your ticket to be admitted. I am aware that in the past, tickets have not been rigorously checked at the door. We are going to do our best to make sure that that changes this year. In terms of actual tickets, if you go to the sign-up form, you'll see that the default is that your ticket will be emailed to you and you can print it out. There is an option there if you don't want your ticket to be emailed to you for you to print out yourself, then there is an option for the shul to provide you with a physical ticket. But we are going to be asking people to bring their tickets with them, and those tickets will be checked. And we are also planning on having different, I probably should have mentioned this before, different lanes for entrance and exit depending on which minyan you're in. So if you are in the minyan in the back of the parking lot, you will be coming in and out one way. If you're in a minyan at the front of the parking lot, you'll be coming in and out another way. The same will hopefully go for the minyanim inside. And so we will have, again, additional security, and there will be people checking tickets at the various entrances for each minyan. Next, if the Sephardic minyan is inside, can I switch to outside Ashkenazi? So once we have all the ticket requests in, and I'll remind people the deadline for that is it's either a week from today or a week from tomorrow. Once we have all the requests in and we figure out which minyan is where, if for whatever reason you don't want to be in the minyan that you requested, then be in touch with the office and we will accommodate you. But in terms of inside versus outside, as I said up front, we are committed to making sure that anybody who does not want to be inside will not be inside, and that anybody who does not want to be outside is not outside. So, of course, if people are flexible, that's great. But for anyone who is not, we are not going to seat anybody in terms of inside versus outside in a spot where they are not willing to be. Hopefully, we will. I'm not sure we'll be able to accommodate the same when it comes to late shift versus early shift. That will again just depend on numbers and who requests what. But certainly inside and outside, that will be honored absolutely.
Michael, can I make a quick comment? Since I think we're done with the questions now, unless there's any ones that aren't here.
Sure.
I just want to make a quick comment about family programming. Rabbi Antin mentioned earlier that we're not able to provide childcare this year just for logistical and health and safety reasons. That's not possible to drop off your children and have them be watched. But we are considering and actively planning potentially something in the afternoon after the busyness of the morning in the parking lot has concluded, that we'll hopefully have something small, maybe 20 or 30 minutes in the afternoon for families with children. We encourage, if you want to go in shifts in the morning, one parent can go to an earlier shift and another parent can go to a later shift, so that both parents and a family can attend services. But in the afternoon, if you want to attend something as a whole family, we're hopefully planning Rosh Hashanah afternoon and maybe even Yom Kippur afternoon, some family programs, socially distanced, of course.
Okay, and also Rachel, our excellent executive director, Rachel Zacci, reminds me that at the moment only members can sign up. I know there are a few people who are not members of the show who are in a different situation, and we're making sure that they can sign up too. But the default right now is that only members can sign up to buy tickets, and so that should also hopefully mitigate some of the issues around non-members just showing up. So I don't see any other questions at the moment. If anybody still has a question, and sorry, members and guests of members. Thank you, Stevie, for reminding me of that. Right now, only members can sign up, but you can purchase tickets for your guests as well. So I don't see any other questions in the chat. If you have one, put it in there in the next 30 seconds, or wave your hand wildly in front of your camera, and hopefully I'll see you.
Michael, I just wanted to add one thing.
Sure,
Rabbi, the message that went out also talks about being able to sponsor for somebody else because of hardship in the community. And so please take a look at that. I mean, not only supporting the shul, but supporting the effort that we're doing to make sure that anybody who wants to daven on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur has a place.
Yes. And so thank you to both Rabbi Antin, Rabbi Cooper, Ben Galper, Zahava, Brian, Rachel, Stevie, and everybody else who's really done so much hard work on figuring this out. And I would like to say I can promise it will go off without a hitch. It probably won't, but as Rabbi Antin said, it will be perfect for this year. And really, I hope that everybody really internalizes that the shul is here for you. We are really doing our best to try to make this work for everyone. If you have any questions, concerns, complaints, you just want to yell at somebody, always feel free to send me an email, call me up, and let me know what you're thinking. And really thank you to everybody for joining tonight, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Bye, everyone.
Good evening. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
So good to see everyone.